The Montgomery, Alabama bus boycott in 1956 brought Stanley Levison and Martin Luther King Jr. together. Levison, a white Jewish businessman, and Dr. King, a nonviolent civil rights leader. But Levison had once been a member of the Communist Party. Their unusual friendship is the focus of the new book, Dangerous Friendship, written by my guest, San Diego author, scholar, and rabbi Ben Kain. And Ben, you've said I can call you Ben, so I'm going to call you Ben. What was this relationship like between Dr. King and Levison? Did Levison work for King?
Well, he didn't actually work for him, but he worked with him, and he followed his life pattern of taking his great personal treasury. The guy was very successful as a businessman. He had 2 law degrees, but never practiced law because he just succeeded in many different phases of the business world. And he donated his money, he gave his money to help causes that he believed in. They were generally leftist causes, socialist causes, and certainly freedom rights causes. And when he met King, he was just enamored of both this new Negro revolution and King's personal qualities, and they complemented each other.
In his funding, as you mentioned in your book, this funding of the civil rights movements, if you will, how come we haven't heard much about Levison then?
Well, one reason is because Stanley did not seek to be heard of, and he felt that keeping a low profile would enhance his ability to do things behind the scenes for King, to call people, to quietly get money to King when he was in jail and needed to be bailed out. And he just wasn't ambitious for that. He actually was a good man who got satisfaction from helping to underwrite, not only financially, but even emotionally and culturally. And by being a friend to King outside of King's immediate circle of African-American preacher colleagues, to be a kind of intellectual comrade. These guys just loved each other. They connected.
What kind of documents and who did you talk to in order to get at this story and get the things you needed for this book?
Well, this story, I really spent 2 years back and forth between San Diego and Stanford University to the King Institute, which really opened its doors to me. And there are some 70,000 pages of surveillance files, letters shared by King and Levison to each other and other people in that immediate circle. But the key person who I spoke to, and I'm still speaking to, who's alive and well, thank goodness, is a remarkable man, an African-American attorney named Clarence Jones, who was King's personal attorney. And Clarence, who is now very feisty, 84 years old and still teaching at Stanford, and Stanley also became bonded. They called each other brothers. And these 2 guys worked to draft King's speeches, edit his books and so forth. So that's who I spoke to.
Was Levison still a member of the Communist Party when he was helping Dr. Luther?
Absolutely not, and that's the key issue. He had been a member of the party, but he had disavowed it completely, stopped giving it money, stopped participating by the time he met King, because he was disillusioned with the Soviet Union, particularly in light of the invasion of Hungary by Soviet tanks and the slaughter of freedom fighters. And he got it, that these guys, this was not utopia, that this was a bad empire. So he was looking for a new cause, so it was very timely.
But back then, guilt by association, if you knew somebody and you were friends with somebody who was part of the Communist Party, you therefore must be the Communist Party, was the idea and the thinking back then. How dangerous was the idea that Stanley had been in the Communist Party for Dr. Luther King and his movement?
So dangerous that many of Stanley's friends, other white people, Jews and Italians who are in the Communist Party, were angry at him and said, don't get close to this wonderful young man. He's just starting out. This is a great movement. You're going to bring him down, because that guilt by association. And in fact, that's what happened. J. Edgar Hoover caught on to this, and he had a congenital distaste for King, probably on racial grounds, and he began to systemically lie to the Kennedy brothers, who now were Attorney General and President, that King had a very close friend who was a communist, and therefore King is a communist. And that broke up the ability of the Kennedy brothers to support the civil rights movement before President Kennedy died, actually.
Do you think that King understood that this was what was happening and that this was part of the reason that, that basically it slowed down his movement?
Well, he understood it very well, because President Kennedy called him into the White House, took him out into the Rose Garden in June of '63, into the Rose Garden, because he himself, the president, was afraid of being wired and tapped by Hoover, and told King, I understand you've got this communist in your entourage. Get rid of Levison or I can't support your civil rights bill. So King did, and they began to communicate through third parties.
It's Martin Luther King Day.
Yes.
We understand the reference to that. Yeah. But why is this important to read now? What takeaways do you want people to read so long ago about how it could have an impact
It's more
today.
important now than ever because we are extremely concerned, as we should be, and we should be outraged by government overreach and by the constant surveillance of our mail, our emails, our internet, everything. This surveillance issue is entirely pervasive. Who would have thought that this narrow issue that affected two men and a movement at that time is now endemic to our society? So this book is not so much about civil rights or my other books, which are about Dr. King per se. It's about this issue of government interfering with movements like a freedom movement. It was outrageous.
All right, on that note, author Ben Kain, thank you very much.
A pleasure. Thank you.